want to give a big thank you to everyone that has shown support so far for my channel and these videos. And today I wanted to go over some investigation for a Windows computer that has been hacked. This is through TryHackMe. I'm going to be going over the walkthrough that I've made. You can follow along here, but I also suggest that you give this room a shot on your own. So you should be able to see this machine. I just started it up and it's already got some things popping up. It's a pretty good indication that there's going to be malware being executed right now. Like right now we have this p.exe file and it had an IP address that it said it was connecting to. It just went away. I think it will be back at some point. But the main objective here is while we're being logged on to the machine, the command prompts and the shell scripts are going to be randomly popping up, particularly every few minutes. And like I said, this is never a good indication. This usually means there's some sort of malware on the computer or even someone that is remotely executing commands on there. With that being said, we want to indicate the kind of compromise, the scope, and in order to remediate all of this, we need to know the full story. So that's where the investigation comes in, and that's the kind of skill that we're going to be taking on today. So there's a few questions we can ask to kind of get the full story. The very first one is, what is the version and year of the Windows machine? The easiest way that I found to do this is going to be using the command prompt, and we can just type in the command system info. It doesn't seem like I can make that any bigger, but I'm going to do system info. So we've got some information here. I'm going to scroll up towards the top. So we're looking at the OS name, and that is going to say Microsoft Windows Server 2016. So the version would be Windows Server 2016. And the next we want to figure out which user logged in last. The easiest way to figure this out is going to actually be with the event viewer. So that's where we're going to go down to the bottom here. So event viewer. We're going to pull up this desktop app. And if you've never been in here before, this is basically where Windows is going to store all of its logs. And that's going to include all of the failed logins, successful logins, things of that nature. To get to those logs, we're going to go to the Windows logs here on the left. I'm going to bring that drop down. And there's a application, security, setup, system, and forwarded events. We want to focus on security right now. So we're going to click on that. We might have to give it a second to load. As of right now, it's saying that the number of events is 2,118. And I believe that's going to change as those random pop-ups are occurring. And you'll kind of get an indication as to why. We want to look at the most current logs that point to the administrator. So looking right here, just at the top, this is the most current logs. Everything is pointing right now. We see like special login. That one's already selected. That one does say system right there. Let's go down to where it says log on. The next one is also system. And then we have a log off right here. That one says administrator. And there's another pop-up happening. So we're going to keep just scrolling through here, but right now we see account name as administrator, and administrator special logon again is administrator. So this is a pretty good indication that the last person to log on is the administrator. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit further right here where it says like credential validation. That also says logon account was administrator. Going up one to the login, that one says system, and then we have account name administrator. So a lot going on with the administrator account, which is very important to know. So the next thing we want to do is actually kind of see all the users that may be on the machine. So if we use the command net users, this lets us know that there's administrator, default account, guest, Jenny, and John. And running this net users command will pinpoint how many users are on the machine, just like was demonstrated. And it's important to find out their roles as well as their legitimacy. And right now we just kind of want to focus on the users and maybe when the last time they were logged in was. So in this case, we'll try to figure out when John was last logged in. So we can do that by going back to the event viewer, and we want to look for a very special event code. So just like right here where it says event ID 4624, the login. So now you should be able to read this. It says filter current log. We're going to click on that. It's going to give us the option right here where it says all event IDs. We can actually go ahead and type in the number that we want, which again is going to be 4624. We'll hit OK. That's going to bring our number of events down to 188, which is a lot easier to go through, but we still don't need to necessarily do this manually. We can still use the tools that we have at hand. So right now we're actually going to use this find option. I'm going to click on that. And then we can type in John, and we'll just do find next. This is going to go through the list and find the very first instance of John. And so that looks like right here we have security ID, and then it says the computer name. in his username. And then the date here is March 2nd, 2019 at 5:48:32 p.m. So using the find option and looking for the string John, that's the very first log that comes up as I was stating. And there's a couple important things to note here. So the first, again, is going to be that time, but also the computer. I don't know if we're going to run into this point during the demonstration here, but when I was going through this the first time, I noticed that there was another computer involved here. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel now that we have figured out when John was last logged in. And then if we go through here and do find one more time, and we actually just try to look for Jenny, it's not seeming to come up with any events. So I know that's another thing that we're going to need to look for, is to figure out when Jenny was last logged in. So let's actually do that really quick. I'm going to skip ahead to that part since we're kind of already in this section. So we're going to use the net user command one more time, except we're going to be a little bit more specific. So instead of users, we're going to do net user and we'll do Jenny. And we'll pipe that instance into this command, the find string. And we're going to look for the string last with a capital L. So if we hit enter now, it actually says that the last login for Jenny was a never. So that's kind of suspicious that there is that user there, but they have not done anything on the system. So we'll definitely keep note of that. All right, so I'm going to minimize this, and then going back to the next question is, what IP does the system connect to when it first starts? I don't know if you were able to see that at the beginning. So what it's referring to is that command prompt that initially was open when we first started the computer. And like I had mentioned, it had stated an IP address that it was trying to connect to. So we can run a couple commands to see if there is a connection going on, but since we're doing a forensic investigation on a computer, it should not actually be connected to the internet, because that's just going to actually kind of further the compromise at that point. If it was connected to the internet, we could do something like netstat as the command -ano. So those are the flags or options that we want to specify for the netstat command. And that will tell us everything that is happening with the computer right now. So these are some IP addresses that are being connected to. I don't see the one that we're looking for in here, which is kind of what I was getting at. Everything I was noticing that was being executed in that first command prompt was happening inside the temp folder. This is actually very common for malware to be implemented inside the temp directory. It's not a directory that people are going to normally go into or notice that something was changed. So it's always good to check there. We're going to go to local disk, and we have the TMP or temp directory right here. And we also notice that was last changed on March 2nd, 2019, kind of around the same time that John was last logged in. So let's open that. And there's a lot of information in here. Again, still all the same date of March 2nd, 2019. And we have that P file that was executed at the very beginning. It says it's an application, so it might be like an executable file. Let's see if we can change our view. So we'll do group by, more, and then we can go down to file extension, which will be right here. So I'm going to hit OK. Now it should give us a little bit more information. So yeah, this is an executable file. We have a couple executable files. There's TXT files, and we also have PowerShell scripts. So I mean, at this point, without having that command prompt up, it's going to be a little bit tough to find that IP address unless it is specified in one of these other files. I don't really recall it being in there. And again, if you were to restart the machine, you would see the IP address it's referring to. And just for the sake of seeing if we can get that information pulled up, I'm going to actually try rebooting the machine here. So it looks like the correct command might be restart computer. So hopefully we can get that to pop up and then show everyone what I'm referring to here. I'll try reconnecting one more time. There you go. So you should see it says connecting to 1034.2.3. And that is happening in the temp file or temp directory with the p.exe file. We'll just kind of leave that as is. And we'll go back to our questions here. The IP address that we just saw on the command prompt is not indicated using the netstat command like I had shown previously. So it's not something we would have really seen unless we saw that execute. So next we want to figure out what two accounts have administrative privileges. So we're going to go back to our command prompt for this. I have that pulled up now. So we're going to use the net command again. This time we're going to specify local group. And the group name is administrators. So we'll hit enter there, and we can see that we actually have the administrator account. We also have guest and Jenny. So those would be the two accounts that have the administrative access. And remember with Jenny has never logged in before, and Jenny has admin privileges. So that's a little bit odd. So the next question says, what is the name of the scheduled task that is malicious? As you kind of go through this and you notice that something keeps popping up every so often, that would definitely indicate that there is some scheduled task occurring. The way to view this is actually a Windows tool called Task Scheduler. You can find that down here at the bottom, right there. So I think we have to go down to right here where it says Task Scheduler Library. Click on that, and now we have some options and things to look through. This one right here says created by administrator, and it's triggered every 2 minutes indefinitely. So that might be one of the things we're seeing. Let's check on clean file system as an example. Let's maybe check on the actions. So we can see right here that it says start a program for the action, and the details is C temp directory and then nc.ps1 -l 1348. If you're familiar at all with reverse shells or backdoors, they often would use netcat or something similar, which in this case, that's probably what that is. And then another good indication is that L option for listen, and then the port that follows. So this is going to be a malicious task or a listener. This is a good indication of compromise as well. And the next question is, what file was the task trying to run daily? And we just answered that, so that's the nc.ps1 file. So if we actually go and investigate that file, we should see that it's a netcat listener. It's pretty obvious just by the name and what the command is doing, but let's go ahead and take a look. So we have the nc file right here. Open with Notepad is fine. We can go ahead and do that. So let's make this big, and then we'll change the format to word wrap. It's going to be kind of an ugly format here, but we can just see like functions, PowerCat, for instance. The word disconnect is right here, DNS failure. So I actually selected the whole thing. Should be able to see this. I'm pulling over this code beautifier. I'm going to paste that in here. So it's much easier to read now. So you have function, PowerCat, and then we have DNS timeout. We have a host option, and here we go, netcat, the PowerShell version. So that's the best indication we're going to get at this point, that this is a reverse shell or a netcat listener. So we'll go ahead and minimize this for the moment. We just investigated that file. We've already answered the question of when Jenny was last logged in, and we know that Jenny has admin privileges. It's possible that this account was created at the same time that Jenny's user was, and we know that the port that was being listened on is 1348. Now we want to figure out what date the compromise took place. So we're going to stick with the ongoing pattern of March 2nd, 2019, just from everything that we're seeing here. And then we can use this date in the event viewer again so that we can further investigate. We're going to do this using that filter log like I had mentioned before. So I'm going to go back to the Windows logs and then security again, and I'm going to pull this over a little bit. So we're going to go to filter log. And then we want to actually change the logged time. So instead of any time, we're going to do custom range. This is a pretty cool function here. We can do first and last event, change that to events on. And then we're actually going to change the date here. So 12:00, and then this will be AM. And we'll have to do the same thing here, except we want to do 11:59 and then PM. So right now we have 2,313 events. Let's see what we narrow that down to when we hit OK. You should see right here, just in that date range, that whole entire day, we have now 516 events to go through. There should be some unusual activity that's going to stand out to us, like security state change is going to be one. There's a lot of log offs and user account management. We have credential validation, user account management again. Right here is kind of where it gets pretty odd. So we have a ton of user account management and security group management options occurring. We go down towards the bottom, we kind of notice that starts right around here. So March 2nd, all of them are going to be March 2nd, 2019. Time frame here is going to be 4:04 and around 40 seconds. So later in the day, so this is PM. Scroll up here. So the very first thing was a log on, and it just says it was done by the system. Let's keep going up here. We still see a lot of security group and user account management, and then we have a log on right here. So this is at 4:04:49 p.m. This is the indication of the compromise. This is exactly when they were successful with everything they were doing and they were able to log in. We go up right here, we have the special login right after it. And then more of these events just keep occurring. We're getting close to the end of the investigation. Right now we want to know what tool was used to get Windows passwords. So we can see that there was a lot of logins that were occurring, and there's something pretty common that happens with Windows computers to gain access to passwords. One of the pop-ups that kept coming up was referring to this file right here, mim.exe. There's also this mim or mim out file, and this is a text file. So we can click on that and very easily get information, and we can see right here it says Mimikatz. And if you don't know what Mimikatz is, it is an exploit on Microsoft Windows that extracts passwords stored in memory and software that performs the exploit. And that would be where a lot of these files are coming from, like this D file, for instance, also a text file. If we click on that, that looks like it's just giving information about the system. It seem to have logged all of the current files and directories, so all the paths, and could get some user information that way as well. And there's other things you can look for in here, like the sys file. So again, that indicates that computer name I was talking about and the administrator. So it's kind of just like the system info command we ran earlier. Yeah, it's all very unusual activity. It's pretty odd and it shouldn't be there. So next question is, what was the attacker's external control and command server's IP? This one can be a little bit tricky because it's not going to be the IP address that we got earlier from that command prompt. This one is actually something we're going to see more so in the host file, because it looks like there was some DNS poisoning that did occur. And on Windows, that would actually be the local drive, and then Windows, and we need to go down to System 32, which is going to be right here. And then we have the drivers folder. So here it is right here in the middle. I'm going to click on that. And then we have an etc folder. Click on that. And then there's the host file. And you can see that was also changed on this day, March 2nd, 2019. Click on that and open it with Notepad. So if we scroll down to the bottom, if you're not sure what a host file does, this is information that your router or computer will use to try to navigate to these websites. If it doesn't have the website or the domain it's looking for in the host file, it's going to reach out to a DNS server. But in this case, it's in the file, so it's just going to refer to the IP address that's there. Virus total and a few other things are connected to the local host or just the device. A little weird, but that's not really the main thing that we're looking for. It's at the very bottom where it says google.com. You'll see that there's an IP address specified down there. So anytime someone goes to Google, it's going to route to this different server instead of giving them Google. I don't know what the actual interface or website is going to look like. This is more than likely going to be the command and control server IP address. So this is what we're looking for, 76.32.97.132. And the very last question that it does ask, kind of going out of order here, is going to be check for DNS poisoning. What site was targeted? And that answers our question right there. So 2 questions in one. This is the server IP for the command and control or C2 server that the attacker is using. And the site that was targeted is google.com. So there's 2 more things that we want to do. We want to find the file or the extension name of the shell that was uploaded via the web servers. And then we also want to find out what port was opened last. To do that, we're going to go to Windows Firewall. So we're going to go to Inbound Rules. I'm going to click on that right here. And this is going to give us all of the ports that are open right now or have been opened. And we can see that the very last one put in there is right here. And that says 1337. That says allow outside connections for development. So that's a very good indication that this would be the port that they used. And then the very last thing for our investigation, so we can understand what was going on here, is again going to be finding the file or the shell that was uploaded and what file extension it had. We want to go back to the temp directory. Yeah, so this PC and then local disk. Let's see if I can get that loaded. So this is where we have that temp directory, and we also notice there's another file or folder here called inetpub, and that was uploaded the same exact day, just before the temp directory. So let's click on that, and then there's another folder in here called www.root, and there's 3 files inside of here. There's the Mimikatz trying to go again, more pop-ups. So we have b.jsp, and we have a shell file and a test.jsp. The shell file actually says it's a GIF, which maybe that's true. But if we actually want to take this a little bit further, we can look at the b.jsp file. And that's what I did. So I opened this guy up with Notepad, and then I would do edit, select all, copy, and then I'm just going to put this into a file on my regular machine here so that I can go to virus total. Save as type txt. So we'll do save. I've got that. Now I'm going to find my file and I'll drag it over, b.txt, and we can see that that ran here. Remember before it was a JSP file. That's the kind of code that's in there right now. I had the extension as txt, but it still was able to detect 21 out of 59 vendors were flagging this as a malicious file. We can see here it says like web shell, JSP, and there's a JSP rat. If we were to look further into what a JSP rat is, FortiGuard had a good explanation for it. They said it's riskware or a JSP rat and is classified as a type of riskware and is potentially unwanted application that is not classified as malware, but may utilize system resources in undesirable or annoying manner and or pose a security risk. And that's kind of exactly what happened here. That's the furthest we can go with this investigation right now. If we go back over here, again, we're able to pinpoint where the connection came from, where it's going to, the files that were added to the server. So the confidentiality that was compromised when all of the information was scanned and taken with Mimikatz, including the passwords. And then there's some integrity here with some of these files, folders that were manipulated. The only thing right now is the availability of the server still seems like you can connect to it, but it's not going to be safe to do so, and eventually that availability might run out as well. So there's 3 things in the security triad that were already taken or compromised right there. We were able to pinpoint a good amount of information, and from here we can make our remediations. We can get rid of these unwanted files. If there's nothing too important on this server, we could also just re-image it completely. If that's out of scope, then like I said, getting rid of the unwanted files, taking the open ports that we don't want, closing those, and removing the users that we don't need, and also making sure that there's no users with escalated privileges. We don't want to give elevated access to anyone that doesn't need it. Let me know what you think of this little walkthrough and how you would go about finding some of these clues differently. Know that there's other ways to go about this, and I would be very interested to hear what everyone else comes up with. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll have some more capture the flag videos and other projects coming forward to help everyone out. This is just something I've been studying in the meantime while I prepare for more blue teaming, but when I get more information and projects set up for everyone, I will share those as well for you guys. Thanks for watching.